What is up, party people? So, I'm gonna change it up a little bit. Got some plans. I gotta get on a plane today, so I'm gonna go a little bit early, at least until Jose goes on. Out of respect. I was doing some research last night, and I came across a couple things that I wanted to wanted to have a conversation about. One of those things being general relativity and the Big Bang. I don't know everything I need to know about this, but hey, at least I'm gonna give it a wonderful try. I'm gonna get that hangout over here. Hang on 1 second. There it is. I gotta find it on my screen. Hey, over there. Hey, what's up, Wolf? How you doing?
I'm mostly here to listen.
All right. What's up, Farmers? How you doing, sir?
Hey, I wasn't first in this time. Thank God for that. Hello, mate.
Yeah. How you doing? All right. So, okay. So, last night I was doing some research, and I've been kind of going back and forth about how gravity is a force, blah blah blah, and I kind of started. Or actually, Big Blue had actually said something to me. He said, maybe we should stick to Newton's gravity. It's a little simpler. Obviously, it's going to be a lot easier to understand, but I couldn't resist. I just couldn't. So, not sure if anyone has ever heard of this before, this situation, but apparently, the Big Bang and general relativity, or actually, I guess the way I would say it is general relativity does not predict the Big Bang correctly. That makes any sense? Any at all?
Well, I think so. At least I understand what you are trying to say.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I actually have a clip, so someone that is much more knowledgeable of the situation will be able to explain it. But I kind of go into it a little bit. So, a lot of I try to make sure I say this when I'm talking about it. But the Big Bang, it's not the beginning of the universe. It'd be the beginning of our known universe, or visible universe, I guess you would say, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So apparently,
Knowable universe.
say it one more time.
Knowable universe. Knowable. Right?
Yes. Damn it. Hang on. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm gonna close my window. All right. Sorry about that, guys. How you doing, Pip? What's up, Crash? What's up, Montreal? How you guys doing?
Hi, Shawn.
Hey, Shawn. I'm doing awesome.
Awesome. So let me get back to what I was saying. So I have a better way of saying it, so it's a little bit more clear for everybody. Okay, so the Big Bang, obviously, or as it is described, is the known universe, what we see, the visible universe, because of the microwave radiation that we see. But I guess the way general relativity explains it is that it starts from a single point. Perfect. I'm so happy Barney's here. How you doing, Barney? What's up, Shawn? How you doing?
Hello.
So I'm happy you're here because you get to help me explain this wonderful thing I found out. So you understand what I'm talking about right now? It's I think they call it geodetic similarity or something like that.
Geodesic?
Yes, geodesic similarity. Or hang on, let me get my notes because I'm destroying it. Okay, it's called a gravitational singularity, or space-time singularity, or simply singularity. Is what it's called. It's and in that it arises the geodesic incomplete, geodesy. There it is, geodesy incomplete, which is basically how about I let the person that told me it tell you guys it? Make life so much easier for everyone. Yeah, I'll show it on here, and that way you guys can see it at least. And then you don't really need the sound on it. Give me 1 second to pull that up. I have it on the OBS, but figured you guys would probably want to see it too, right? Nice and quick. There it is.
It would be nice.
Okay, so let me go and pull this up. Stop it. All right, so let me share it now. It is way too early. Oh, I think it's running smooth, but we'll see. All right, so this is going to be just like a real basic explanation of what I'm trying to explain to you guys, and then it'll definitely make more sense after he explains it, or you see what it is. You guys won't be able to hear it. It'll start, don't worry.
Earlier and earlier times as it approaches the Big Bang. Infinite
means
clocks
more if you can hear it.
rewinding
Oh,
towards
I know
zero,
what to do.
and then they all converge.
We figured this out last time. All right. I will use closed caption. Oh, I don't have it on here. Sorry, guys. You're out of luck. Oh, wait, do I?
No.
Nah, I don't think it's going to work, but we'll see. Nope. It's going to want me to upload. I'll just repeat it for you guys. Or it'll be pretty
Earlier and
basic.
earlier times as it approaches the Big Bang. Infinite clocks rewinding towards zero, and
Want me
then
to?
they all converge.
So right now what they're doing is looking back at the Big Bang. And they're using geodetic measuring of space-time back to the Big Bang, okay? That's what we're looking at right now.
Converge. And then what? Well, then nothing. All geodesics end at the Big Bang singularity.
Okay, so what it's saying is all geodetics end at the Big Bang. Now, what this is saying is that, or basically what general relativity says, you know, everything is based in the space-time. Well, if that's the case, then that is the starting point of time. But it's not exactly possible. Right, Barney?
It's a bit more convoluted than that, but yeah.
You know, that's how, you know, we're rolling on the layman's terms here. Very, very low, minimal understanding, but understanding.
Okay, so what's a geodesic? A geodesic is a line that something moves along through the four-dimensional space-time, right?
Our
If you
stars,
are-
our planets, our galaxies, basically, right?
Everything.
Yes.
If you're your geodesic is your world line. It is literally your motion through space-time, all of space-time.
Yes.
As the universe becomes smaller, all lines of motion get more compressed, get more together, right?
Yes.
If you're affected on by a force, your geodesic will curve more than the space-time curves itself. If you're not being acted on by a force, or if the forces are in equilibrium, you will move along your natural geodesic. Now, when the universe was so small and so young that those geodesics kind of, when you hit a singularity, when it starts losing sense that you're talking about different geodesics because they're all at the same space at the same time in the same direction, when direction doesn't have sense because you don't have space yet because the space is infinitely small, then you lose the ability to disambiguate between the individual geodesics.
So basically,
Therefore,
yeah, go
wait,
ahead.
let me just
Yeah.
finish.
Yeah.
It becomes impossible to predict what the state before that was. Basically, in classical physics, in classical mechanics, that general relativity is a part of, everything is deterministic. You can, if you know what geodesic something is moving along, assuming that you know everything else about the universe, you can calculate every previous position and every future position at infinitum, right?
Mm-hmm.
Into
Yes.
infinities on both ends.
Yeah.
And the Big Bang, where they all come together and all lose any meaning of direction, means that you can no longer do that. That you literally use information about everything that happened before that instant. And that's why the statement is that under GR, under general relativity, under relativistic understanding, there is no space and no time at singularity. That
Yeah.
space and time come into existence only after the singularity, if there was the singularity.
Yes, or the beginning of, basically.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Just want to make sure I understand. Now,
Now, the intuitive part of that is really, really difficult, because you cannot help but think in the concept of linear time, of 1 second before any event is 1 second before that event, and 1 second after that event is 1 second after that event. If Big Bang was an event, then there must be a 1 second before that. And we kind of just assume that that means that there was nothing there, like reified nothing, a literal nothing, a real nothingness for an eternity, and then at some point Big Bang happened. That's not what general relativity says. General relativity says that there was no 1 second before that. Kind of in the same sense that when you get to the North Pole, right, if you're going north, at every point you can go 1 more meter north until you get to the North Pole, and then there is no more north.
yeah, everything. If everyone was running latitude lines, if we would all meet at the pole, and there we couldn't go any further.
Yeah, there is no more north. You cannot go further north.
And
If
so
you proceed in the same direction you've been going so far, you will be going south.
you'd be going into the past almost.
In that same sense, there is no past before general relativity. Now, there is another problem with the same thing, that general relativity actually is a classical theory of physics, of mechanics, in that it's deterministic, but at some point at what is it, 10 to the minus 40 seconds after the Big Bang, you get to the sub-Planck levels, at levels that are smaller than quantum, that are so small that all the uncertainties, like the Heisenberg uncertainty, the certainties of position, the certainties of momentum, the certainties of time and energy, blow up to infinities. So you literally cannot describe that universe in a classical mechanics way, and that's the point where general relativity literally completely fails. That's beyond its limit of explaining anything. It just, whatever you ask it gives you nonsensical information.
And believe it or not, I brought this up for a great reason, to justify Newtonian gravity, because again, the way science works is it tries it what do you say, studies, it experiments, it tests over and over and over and over and over again, with the assumption that at some point something may change. Am I wrong, Barney? That's a good way of saying that.
No, that's
Okay.
fair enough. That holds up.
But the realization is all these different aspects that we're talking about, and I just realized this. There's these different scales that these things depend on and matter for, where they don't matter for the other scales. For instance, here on the surface of Earth, general relativity in this geodesic issue don't matter to us. It means zip. Am I wrong in saying that? That's kind of how I'm taking it.
Well, except that curvature of space-time is what's keeping you stuck to the surface, but otherwise.
Well,
if
not going to
you're
cause
just willing
us a
to
problem.
accept Newton, yeah, if you're just willing to, if you're saying that the difference between Newtonian physics and Einsteinian physics doesn't matter to us, yeah, it doesn't.
Well,
Here
on the surface, yeah. It's basically this the topic we're going over. It doesn't affect us.
Well, until you get to some extreme precision things such as the GPS, right? In GPS, it actually does affect us. Which one of those is true?
I don't mean like throwing it out. I just mean that this general relativity doesn't run into this problem until distant universe. It's not on our scale.
No, that's what I'm telling you. It is. GPS. When you take GPS as a system, it actually has to account for time on the general relativity way of thinking, not on the Newtonian way of thinking, because on the Newtonian way of thinking, it would be wrong by a tiny fraction of a second, which means that it would drift by something like, I'm pulling a number out of my ass, but let's say 700 meters per day.
Well, I think I
position drift.
I think I phrased that wrong then. So the same way Newtonian works up until we get to our solar to our solar system, distance into our solar system, and then general relativity would take over. That's the same way I'm thinking of it as in general relativity. So general relativity, it works. We need it for GPS, but why does what happens at the Big Bang affect us here?
No, in respect of the Big Bang doesn't affect us here, except for we're here.
Mm-hmm. Well,
right.
Okay, so then this is more of our history, not how things work.
Yeah.
Okay. So is this an issue that will be an issue going in, looking into the future of universe?
It does affect us in this. So a lot of things in physics that we didn't know or we didn't understand, once we understood them, once we had a fully meaningful way of explaining them that was testably real, there were invariably technologies that came out of that, practical uses. Now, we don't know exactly what the singularities are in respect to black holes, in respect to the Big Bang, and how they function, and how physics functions when general relativity and quantum physics mix in that way. But once we do know, yes, I do think that there will be very direct consequences in the sense of technologies and understanding and improvements to our existing technologies that come out of that.
Okay. So do these other theories, strings, all these other alternative theories, or better yet, the theory of everything, are they having to take these things into account right now, or is this later on?
They are looking for those answers.
Okay.
They are attempts to find those answers and confirm that they have the right answer.
Okay. So it literally is just an ongoing experiment, ongoing observations, until
the pursuit of truth.
Necessary. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Until necessary. So that kind of also shows that it's not general relativity or any of these theories don't run on a set game plan. It's basically, this is what it's supposed to do. We make the observations, and if it doesn't do it, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So,
once you figure out how it does work, then you can employ it for different, like, for example, when we just discovered transmutation by nuclear fission and fusion, right?
Mhm.
It was postulated by a lot of people that, yeah, that's neat, but that will never be useful, ever.
Mm.
And when there were talk in science fiction about nuclear bombs and stuff like that, there was literally like one after the other, the greatest scientists saying, oh, that's just wishful thinking, and there is no way that we can ever harness the energy of the atom for anything useful. It's too unreliable, it's too unpredictable, it's too way out of our ability to control what happens to the individual atom and how they affect each other, right? And
Mm.
now we live in a world where nuclear bombs and nuclear fission plants and potentially soon nuclear fusion plants are a reality.
Mm.
So
Okay.
you really cannot say right now what will be the consequences once we find out,
Yeah, we don't know yet.
because
I
we
get
don't
it.
know yet.
I get it. Okay, so I did this on purpose. I wanted everyone to think really hard and their brains to hurt and mush a little bit like mine did last night for this point. And I hate to say this, but I do have to kind of give thanks to Slick for this. He said something that I actually thought about, and maybe it actually is a situation. He said, imagine if we didn't have all the giants before us. Where would we be on these panels? And I said to him, we'd be cavemen. He got all irritated by it. And I told him, hey, yeah, if without them, we would be starting at step 1. And step 1 has nothing to do with the shape of the earth, has nothing to do with what happened in the beginning. It pretty much is, why is everything happening to me? And I don't think anybody ever does that, because if everyone tried, at least you definitely see the holes in both models, or both ideas, or both theories, I guess you would call it. And I don't know if jumping that far back helps, or it just lessens the progress of it. What do you guys think?
You cannot possibly not stand on the shoulders of the giants before you. You can decide which giants you're going to choose and which knowledge you're going to accept, but if you just discard all knowledge, then you have then you're less than cavemen. You literally cannot bang two rocks together. You have to go figure out that there is a thing called rock.
Or my
Not-
existence first. I think that'd probably be right.
So there is actually somewhere in the past the first human who banged two rocks together, the first human who figured out that what fire is and how to harness it, how to find it, then how to make it, and that's part of the technological progress of human beings.
Yeah, and it
So-
seems
Together, guys.
If you're using language, if you're using ideas, you have been taught. If you are eating food, like finding which food is edible, and you are using instructions from the people who have told you which food is edible and which is not, and how to prepare it, and in a sense, science is just more of the same. And yes, you can doubt everything, and you should doubt a lot of things.
Mhm.
And when somebody tells you that this is edible and this isn't edible, you can go and find out. There, there are limits to how much experimenting you should be doing on yourself in that regard, right? But
Yeah.
there are also ways in which you can test.
Guinea pigs.
Yes, you can get some guinea pigs. You can find some slaves and force them to encrypt and then see what happens.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess you couldn't. And so no matter what, yeah, okay, so I see what you're saying. In our minds, we perceive the Feynmans, the Einsteins, the Newtons as our giants, but realistically, that
You're
very first, what do you call it, the Homo sapien, or what are you, fucking Homo erect, whatever. That's the beginning. Like that first human was the first quote unquote giant.
yes.
Ah, that's eye opening right there. You don't ever think that far back mattered, but it does.
But it does. It does define like what you have learned from your parents and grandparents and your environment does very much matter in how you conceptualize the world.
Mm-hmm.
It is those preconceived notions and biases that the flat earthers are constantly talking about that you should throw away.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of things that you just take for granted without understanding them, and you just accept them. The meaning of the words, the sentence structure, the concept of truth and reality, and
Yeah.
all
It's.
those
Go ahead. I'm
all
sorry.
those philosophical questions. And philosophy in a way was and still is an effort to kind of remove that bias in a way.
Mm-hmm.
To try to figure out which of those things we can confirm without being told what they are. Like, which of those things we would think of the very same way, even if we started from zero,
Yeah.
because they are necessarily true.
Yeah. The daytime, the nighttime, just general stuff like that. I mean, didn't would you say that as man, as human, so to speak, maybe we need knowledge too far? I mean, for instance, does the universe really matter? Does what I mean? Even I can tell it's a yes and a no, realistically.
Yeah.
So yeah, so basically the pull away from quote unquote nature wasn't a lazy man's quote unquote thing. You know, people say technology makes people lazy. It's realistically just the constant drive. That constant drive to want to know everything. And then once you start knowing it, more and more, things are created after that.
Yes, and for us as species, it has had an evolutionary advantage.
Yes.
Knowing that much more makes us more easily adapt to any environment, even the environments which are hugely and impossibly hostile to us.
Antarctica or Arctic, anywhere.
Antarctica, kilometers under the surface of the sea, in the outer space,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Places where we, in a sense, don't belong.
Yeah, but we can survive there. And looking forward, we can thrive there. We now have enough of technology to kind of create, to use that technology practically wherever we are in the universe.
Yeah, exactly. Damn. So it's real. It's kind of because I'm just realizing it's realistically the sense of the good and evil of it. I mean, of course, the knowledge, like you said, it brought our species to where it is, but at the same time, it's also put a lot of weight on our species. Not
Yeah.
so much, not so much to put procreate, continue on, but more of worry.
To thrive, to
Yeah,
succeed.
yeah. But it's filled with worry. It's not, it's not quite the hunted or, your prey. But yeah, see, it's like a real good mind fuck when you really think about it. What would be better or what would be worse? Because they both fit in their own little categories of both sides. Because, yeah, it's like, in a sense, you're going, why does the Big Bang really matter? It happened. We're here. Okay. But that tells us that in another 1,000 years, we'll be okay still, knowing all these things. Knowing that, we don't have to worry. We can see all those things that could be an issue. If we didn't.
Perhaps. So, wait, before we know, it could be anything. But when we know, then it kind of it diminishes the possibilities. It says which things are impossible. But it could be a very real outcome that we finally figure out what the Big Bang is, how it all started, and it necessarily means that the universe will cease existing next Tuesday. It's a possibility, right?
Okay. Well,
the thing is that curiosity of finding things out has led us to figure things out way beyond what any individual person ever could, and make our lives more dangerous, but also more successful and more easier, right?
Makes sense. I don't know. I don't know if it's easier.
It gave us more control to do good and to do evil.
Okay, there you go. Because it's like I said, I've always thought about that. Who lives better, who lives a better life, us or animals in nature. But I guess it would be disingenuous to say technology is evil. Then, at the same time, saying it's not evil. Man, that's confusing.
I know it's one of the things that I had kind of mental dissonance about is the concept of natural versus artificial.
Well,
where when you start looking at things as I've just described them, there is nothing artificial. What we are doing is no more artificial than an anthill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everything from 3D printing, shit.
It is in our nature to be curious and discover and utilize that knowledge in creating more things. There is the word artificial has no real meaning. It just means something that's created by humans.
Or better yet, nature sped up. or what do you call it? Manipulated. There you go. Nature manipulated. That'd be a better one. But yeah, because again, epiphany, bam, mind blown. That the stick, they have the monkeys do the stick for the termites. That is the same thing as a cell phone or a slaughterhouse or a grocery store or the grocery store that delivers or the drone that delivers. It's all the same thing.
Shall we get back to the topic of the stream? I think we kind of veered off.
I know, but it was good weird off. Yeah, we can go back. Let's go. When it comes down to how this theory, general relativity, is structured, again, now I'm gonna ask this question every time I talk about general relativity because it's like a mind fuck to me. That mass that bends space-time is a force.
Oh, it very much depends on how you describe it, but yes, from your local Cartesian frame of reference, it is a force. But in the very same sense that from your local Cartesian frame of reference, Earth is flat.
But isn't it? but doesn't that mass have to bend it so it's that direction? It's vector.
Yeah.
Thus, so when it made the bend in space time, it was a force, and now it's just this. I don't. Well, I guess if in a sense it's there already. So the whole that doesn't make sense to me because it had to have bent it. Make the
That's what
gravity
I was just
well.
gonna say, Sean. It makes absolutely no sense. Sorry to cut in.
Well, it's not that it doesn't make sense so much that is in it. It's a really good think piece because it has to. It does work. I mean, it is what it is. It's just explained better yet.
No, but in order for that theory to work, you need the Newtonian gravity, correct?
Yeah, but remember.
Wait.
Einstein didn't throw out Newtonian. He started from somewhere and revamped, I guess, or explained it better in his interpretation of it, without it being a force. But I mean, it's not like he was like, "Oh, that's never been a force, and that's never going to be talked about like that." It doesn't work. He didn't throw it out. He didn't.
No.
Go ahead.
No. Wait. What
the
is
slashing?
a force?
It's a damn. It's on the tip of my tongue. I know that. It's a vector change, right, or something like that. It's a vector. Yeah. It's when a damn. It's right there.
A
on the
force
tip of
is
my...
a vector. Yes.
Yes.
But what is it? Like really in the universe? What is it that we use the word force for?
The moving of something.
No,
or
we
what moves?
We use motion for that.
Okay. To describe something we observe.
Quite literally, it is what is in Newton's formula of force is mass times acceleration.
Okay.
Right.
And that all gets
equals
thrown
ma.
out with Einstein.
No. It is a force. The word force literally describes a number or a vector that gives mass its acceleration. Whatever causes some acceleration
is the force.
Is a force, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. That's literally all the meaning of the word. That's its ontology. It is a regularity. It is an observed regularity in nature that some things accelerate, that acceleration is proportional to their mass, and that there is a number, when you take that acceleration, that mass, that there is a number which is measurable or constant or equivalent to some other numbers such as energy and work, but it is just a number and a direction.
Okay, so as it's described, but as it's described now, so as general relativity describes, say, the Earth, it's in its gravity well already. It's here. So there's no force acting now upon it. Is that a good way of interpreting it?
So it depends on which metric you use to measure things, right? How do you measure distances in space and time?
Okay, I see.
Okay, so if you use a Cartesian system, which is always flat in all directions, such that all the coordinates, all the dimensions are always at precisely 90 degrees, absolutely 90 degrees, and all distances are equidistant. 1 meter here and 1 meter there is always the same. That's a Cartesian system, right?
Okay, yeah.
Those two facts make a Cartesian system. If you're using a Cartesian system, then you will see forces. The force of gravity.
Yeah.
If you're using a Cartesian system from your position right now, then you will measure an acceleration, a force downwards, right?
Yes.
Einstein says that, guys, I figured this out. I've found some facts of the universe that seem to contradict each other, and I found a way to make them all work together in a way that is shared amongst everything in existence. But unfortunately, that means we're not in a Cartesian system. That 1 meter here and 1 meter there is not the same thing, and 1 second here and 1 second there is not the same thing. And if you go far enough or fast enough or in a gravitational field enough, then you will get these things get disparagingly farther and farther away from a Cartesian system. And if you insist on measuring things in a Cartesian system, then you will get some numbers and some accelerations relative to your position. So from Einstein's position, the thing in orbit actually has no acceleration. It has no force acting upon it. It is just moving along its geodesic, measuring out 1 meter in front of itself at a time, constantly moving in a straight line that touches upon itself, that curves upon itself.
Well, it's in that gravity. It's in the gravity well.
Even though you're moving in a straight line, in the straightest possible line, eventually you reach the same spot where you started off from, and you repeat it over and over again. But if you superimpose a Cartesian system of measurements, which isn't reality, then you will be able to measure a force, because then you will measure things deviating from those Cartesian coordinates.
Yeah,
so
the size
basically,
of
basically Einstein is saying that Cartesian system of measurements is nice and easy to think about, and it's beautifully simple. It's just not what reality is. It's wrong, right?
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. I get it.
So there, in Einstein's way of thinking, in no space and time are not real. What's real is space-time. Meters, units of distance, any unit of distance taken by itself is wrong. That's not how the universe works. Seconds as the unit of time is wrong. That's not how it works. It works in space-time intervals. And those space-time intervals, like if you measure them and I measure them, and somebody going at 99% of the speed of light measures them, they will always be the same for everybody. We will all agree on them.
With all due respect, Barney, do you seriously believe that? Do you seriously believe what you just said?
It's not a believe. It's not a believe. It's observation. We do it every day.
No, it is also, for me, it is also a belief. I do believe that. In the philosophical sense of belief, where I think that the statements that I have given are true. Not merely an explanation of. I think that is how the universe works.
That's how you understand it.
That's how I understand it. And why do I think it's true? Because measuring things in meters and seconds doesn't work. When somebody is moving at a high enough, when something is moving at a high enough a speed, or is moving in a large enough gravitational field, what they would measure as 1 meter and what we would measure as 1 meter doesn't coincide. The seconds don't coincide. They come apart more and more. Simultaneity comes, like what we would say happened at the same time comes apart more and more. These things are observed. We have technology built upon that knowledge. Technology that doesn't work without it and does work with it. So if you're going to say what my intuition tells me is more real than that thing that actually works, when my intuition, if I followed my intuition, it wouldn't work, then I have to say your intuition is wrong. I understand it. I share the intuition. I just happen to know that it's wrong.
Have you
Does that answer your question?
Not at all. not really. No, it's still a marvelous story for me. With all due respect, have you heard of irreducible complexity?
Yes,
No.
I've heard of irreducible complexity. I haven't found any example of it except for appeals to ignorance. I
Let me
don't know
explain
it,
to the
therefore it's
people that,
unknowable.
if that's okay with Shawn, I would like to explain it simply for people that may not have heard of it.
Absolutely. Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Montreal.
Okay, irreducible complexity evolves the idea that certain biological systems cannot evolve by successful small modifications to pre-existing functional system through natural selection. In other words, you cannot make a complex system a little bit at a time. In other words, an amoeba needs the tail to swim right away. It can't evolve the tail or else it won't live. So this kills the
Paramecium,
Big Bang
amoebas don't
Theory
have tails,
in
but
its
yeah.
roots.
What about
Well,
frogs?
I might have wrong. I'm gonna use the wrong creature, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
So explain that one away.
So
Well,
the example that was given like boastfully and proudly for practically centuries was the eye, where an eye has so many complex components that make it work in light detection, in focusing of the light, in the substances that it's made of, in the keeping it wet and keeping it clear, that it just seemed impossible, that it literally seemed irreducibly complex. If any of those things didn't work, like you couldn't have a less complex eye which still worked. But ultimately we found that yes, you can, and not only that you can, but there are living examples of the entire evolution of the eye, from literally like the very simplest eye that you have is your skin, which is sensitive to infrared radiation. Therefore, it can tell, like when you feel the heat coming from some direction on your skin and not feel it from the other, you can say the heat is there. That is your skin seeing infrared in the infrared spectrum of color, right? And then if you have a dip, then that bit of your cells which can determine the direction that radiation is coming from can be reduced to a smaller surface and say it's coming from that direction or that direction. And like you can go through each and every step, and every one of those things just adds to the complexity, adds to the functionality. And yes, some of those things go away, and yes, there are attempts by nature to do something which aren't as successful as other attempts, but that's precisely what evolution says it would do. There is no example of irreducible complexity that I know of that isn't merely an appeal to ignorance, that isn't merely, well, we don't know how that came about, therefore it couldn't have come about.
I mean, we haven't seen the big drastic evolutionary change, but we see these little steps that improve a species' existence. Right off the top of my head, the zebra when it first was was around, it wasn't this striped animal. It was partly striped, and it became over time as it evolved, became completely striped and became a blended in and became very difficult to hunt because of this. That's an evolutionary advantage, not always a disadvantage. It doesn't work like that, I don't think.
Agreed. Even birds on the Galapagos have shown that exactly, Shawn, with their beaks evolving to different plants. But an ant will never become a pigeon.
Yes, it will never become a pigeon.
Yeah. The same way we'll never
because
become
a pigeon is a completely different thing.
Yeah.
But there was a thing sometimes in the past that wasn't a pigeon and that wasn't a bird at the Galapagos, but was their common ancestor.
There's
because
absolutely no
well,
proof
every
of
There
this.
is
There's
there is no
absolutely
way.
no proof.
yeah, every time I
There
hear
is no way. Wait, there is
Yeah.
no way for a dog to give birth to a cat. I absolutely agree with that. And there is no way in which a dog could, over many generations, become a cat. What is a dog now? All of its ancestors, all the way into the future, will be dogs. But there is a primordial carnivore, which is the common ancestor of both cats and dogs.
Mhm.
Both cats and dogs are still carnivores, right? That carnivore became two races of beings, or n races of beings, and those two races of beings diverged from each other to become the carnivore cat and the carnivore dog.
but that didn't
So
happen
there
in a short time.
Where is this mythical creature?
No, see, that's the problem. It doesn't happen in 1,000 years. Okay, it takes a lot of time, and that's I think why. And I'm not saying you. I think that's why creationists don't want evolution to be at all, because because evolution does take time. It takes a lot of time.
No, but I can look up in the phylogenetic tree what the common ancestor of cats and dogs is, right? And you can do it, and you can do it too.
Yeah, I think a seal is a part of the dog. No, one of the the dog.
I
Yeah,
think the best example is the whale. You can trace the whale back to something that looked like a cow.
Right?
yeah. No. Wait. Yes and no. Don't say the cow though, because cow is not a natural. That's not a.
And in that
I
sense,
said
in the
something
cladistic sense, we are not merely descendant from apes, and apes are not merely descendant from monkeys. We are apes, and we are monkeys, and we are mammals, and we are placental beings, and we are amniota, and we are animals, and we are, what's the word? The type of cell. We are eukaryotes.
That's the one. That's what it all goes back to, isn't it?
Yes, that sequence, never in that sequence did we evolve into something else. We
Isn't it
evolved
funny,
into a
Barney?
what?
Sorry, finish.
We evolved into a different kind of that same thing, right?
Right. Isn't it funny though that we're the only species on Earth that can think and logic?
Whoa!
How do you know that?
That's not true.
How do you know that?
That's not true at all. Dolphins, dogs. All these animals. We know they think. They learn. They have feelings. They cherish their young. Like that was a very bold statement.
Well, let me put it to you this way: when was the last time you conversed with your dog?
Yeah, 2 days ago. Yeah. and then I'm going to Texas to do it again.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So wait. Yeah, Montreal. You never had a pet? Never had a dog?
Look, Shawn, I hear you.
I know.
But smart, but you know what I'm saying, right?
No. I don't have
to say it, right?
No. But the just because my dog does not speak English does not mean we don't communicate. Does not mean he does not understand my emotions, my feelings, my the ups and the downs. Dogs are very receptive to your feelings.
Oh yes.
Agreed, but our intelligence level surpasses any other animal on this planet.
Yes,
that just means we're the smartest, but that doesn't mean nothing else is smart.
Since we came up with the definition,
we can't be the only ones on the planet.
We're not.
Something's up there.
Again,
yes, there are things which are very smart. They're not as intelligent as we are.
Sentient, I think is the word you're looking for.
Right?
Sentient. We're sentient.
Sentient.
And other animals.
I do believe that other animals are sentient as well.
Yeah, other apes are sentient. They can recognize themselves. A dog couldn't recognize
dolphins.
Yes, the mirror test you're referring to.
Yes, self-awareness.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's very few animals that are actually self-aware. I mean, you've only got to watch a cat catch its reflection in a mirror. or
Wait,
something,
wait.
you know.
But hang on. If you're a human who's never seen a mirror, you will react the same.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
You,
but
Yes,
it
but you won't
doesn't
attack
take you long to
yourself.
work out what's happening.
Yeah.
Whereas something like a cat will never work out that it's looking at itself. They just can't. They're not self-aware.
a person
They
that's
don't
That's
know
my
they're
whole
looking
point.
at themselves.
once you say, "Oh, that's you," they recognise it's them. So
Aren't there people
Yes,
like
but
that?
I don't see. I don't see why that's. I don't see why that's a problem. There is also an animal which has the longest canines, and there is
Yeah.
also an animal which can
Well,
jump the
of
highest,
course.
right?
Well, the key,
So
the key to,
humans, even if we take his statement as completely true, we are the species who can think the best,
As far as we know.
but yeah,
as far
thank
as we
you.
know.
Yes.
Why should that be a problem?
Yeah. Because who knows? The dolphins could be more intelligent. We might just not have got the message yet.
No, we think we're smart because we can click a button and watch
No,
TV and talk online.
It's self-serving bias, right?
And the
Yeah,
dolphins probably
exactly.
think that they're more intelligent for exactly the same reason. They can't
We-
do any of that.
Yeah, they get the hump.
We are defining the word intelligence.
Yeah.
We are
Yes.
defining how we measure intelligence. We are measuring it by how useful it is to us.
Uh-huh.
Like making a grill sandwich. How much use would that knowledge be to a dolphin?
Exactly.
It's a lot.
But
Yes,
again,
it
but all the knowledge that a dolphin has would be very important to us. And if we were in the same situation.
And one of the things that makes us very exceptional is not merely how intelligent we are, but how good we are at networking, at thinking up new ideas, yes, and finding new solutions, but then communicating it to other members of our species
But
and kind of offloading a part of that cognitive process to others so that we can be even more intelligent as a group than we are as individuals.
Now,
which is the whole standing on the shoulders of giants thing.
Is that mammals or humans? Because orcas are exceptional at planning, going through with the plan and teaching the young. I mean, there's lots of footage of killer whales doing things on the fly and then redoing them and then them working and then applying that to hunt.
So the thing that I was trying to get to was specifically communicating new ideas.
Yeah.
Telling one another of something that we haven't thought of before.
The Earth isn't flat.
But
What?
Yeah.
Gadzooks.
Talk.
is it because we can't communicate with animals that we can't say they do the same?
We need a doctor.
Because you're saying that animals won't, their thought process wouldn't evolve either.
They function differently. They don't communicate ideas as well. Like in computation theory, like a chicken's brain would be sufficient to compute any problem that a human brain can compute.
Mm-hmm. But
sense time. So if chickens could communicate, it would take them a lot longer to do what we have done. But they could theoretically do it.
Yeah, I get
However,
it now.
they don't communicate new ideas to each other. They cannot. They do not have the capacity to communicate them literally, to explain them, to express them, to absorb that information from others. Therefore, they are in that perpetual state of every chicken has to figure out the world for himself.
Okay, I get it.
I'm sorry, I was just bringing some humour into it, but it was getting a bit deep. So,
No, it's not a bad move, to be honest.
I see what you're saying. It's not the fact of, it's the cognitive ability to think of anything, basically, at any time.
The cognitive ability to think is one component. The networking of ideas is another component, right? Even if we were as smart as we are now, if we didn't have the language to communicate new ideas, the ability to absorb new ideas from others, the ability to have you perform part of my thinking process, not have to, like, whenever you give me new information, I don't have to go back to the basics of reality and start from scratch. I can decide whether I trust you or not, and incorporate, and whether I can incorporate it into my worldview or not, which animals, for the most part, aren't capable of.
That's true.
Right?
Agree.
That's what sets us apart, because then we actually can build on the shoulders of giants.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Ultimately, the reason why we are on the top of, or somewhere on the top of the food pyramid.
Well, as Professor
I agree with
Hawkins,
Barney. Communication is key here.
yes, as Professor Hawkins said in the Pink Floyd track, for millions of years, mankind lived just like the animals. Then something happened which unleashed the power of our imagination. We'd learned to talk. And then it all went to shit.
If anyone who has children understands.
Yes. They
You
learned
guys
to
heard of the
talk and then,
Sumerian story to this?
Say again?
We're going off topic here.
Sumerian.
Whatever, man. We're just flowing right now. This is good,
yeah.
good situation. Whatever you want, man.
Go, go.
Well, you've heard of the Anunnaki, the Sumerian gods, and their story.
That's the one where
Of how man became sentient.
were like the slaves of them or something.
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
yeah. I don't know very much, but I know bits and pieces.
This is completely off base and purely just talk.
Mhm.
But apparently, a race of aliens came to Earth looking for gold because their planet was going through heating and they needed the gold for something for their atmosphere, blah, blah, blah. So they came here and they started mining, but they were like God people. They had powers and they resented the fact that they had to work in the mines. So what they did was they found the early human, which was dumb, like any other animal, and they made us just smart enough so we can mine the gold for them. Now, this is just a story. I'm not saying this is fact. Interesting, though.
Yeah,
Sounds
it is.
like a good story.
This is all explained perfectly in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, by the way.
Jesus Christ.
Just keep banging the rocks together,
Where
guys.
dolphins are bloody important, by the way.
As are the mice.
Dolphins
The mice you got to watch for the mice.
speaking real basic.
Dolphins in dressing gowns. Very important.
Now, my question would be,
Must be fair.
it's kind of going to throw it back, but in a sense not, but this is not really a set one right now, but doesn't everything that we've discussed show you that it's an evolutionary change rather than a creation?
No, the
it's
opposite.
towards
It shows
to
that
Montreal.
we don't know what the hell. Sorry, Shawn.
No, yeah, no, go. I was done.
It shows the opposite. It shows that none of us know what the hell we're talking about. It's just stories.
Well, not
Oh.
stories. How about this? We don't know what we're talking about, but we're trying to figure it out. And this is the step we're at of understanding.
Yeah, I agree. And evolution makes more sense than
I mean,
something created.
Well, we have evidence of evolution. That's the main thrust of that one. We have
well, see,
evidence of-
this is what because remember, so you guys are going to love this. As a flat earther, I've never thought that there was a creator, ever. I've always believed in evolution. I coined myself, and a lot of people in the chat may know, I coined myself the only flat earth evolutionist. To me, and this is how I had to start explaining evolution. A million adaptations become an evolution. It's the only way to explain it to someone who doesn't believe in evolution.
And that's why you're back on our side then.
Because it's we can see it. We adapt. Go outside. It's cold. You put a jacket on. Well, if you live in a climate that's always cold, you're gonna have thicker blood. That's an adaptation. It becomes an evolution because then the whole population becomes like that. That's an evolutionary change right there.
living at high altitude, your lungs will eventually adapt over a period of time to cope.
Yeah.
with
Matter of fact,
lack of oxygen, blah blah blah.
the Himalayas. In the Himalayas, The people that live in the mountains, like the Sherpas and all those
Yep.
people originated on the lowlands. They weren't mountain people.
Oh, no.
Now they are. Now there is a sect that lives in the mountain, and there's one that lives on the plain. They have a different genetic makeup now. Not complete, but you know what I mean. Like one's blood super is a lot thicker than the other. There are different traits that change over time, but they come from the same people.
They've adapted to live in that
Yes.
climate.
And
at that
then-
altitude.
And after the adaptation kicks in, and it becomes instead of it being an adaptation to your physical, where you're putting a jacket on, when your body makes the change for the situation, that's the evolutionary change.
Yep.
And it's always plagued me on this one. Why wouldn't, if there was a creator, why wouldn't the creator use evolution? It's splendid. It's fucking works excellent.
No,
Well,
it's a creator. Why isn't the world just lovely, temperate, suitable for everybody in every country?
Why is the human body as it is now? If that's an intelligent design, I'm sorry, whoever designed it was not intelligent. It's some of it is a right bloody mess.
You seen God's stick?
Yes. made a right fucking hash of it, to be honest. I mean, we've got a nerve that travels all over the place, that sort of up and down a bloody spine.
Hey, Earth. I'm going to ask you this, Earth. We're having a wonderful conversation. Please.
I understand.
Thank you.
I
Cool.
Yeah, to
understand.
seriously
And I wanna interject on what you guys are talking about. That's all, because you guys are you're claiming basically that acclimatizing yourself at a higher altitude, that's evolution.
No.
Yes.
Wait. No,
Yes.
because
Yes or no?
no, because climatizing
Yes.
does not mean no. Because climatizing can happen within days. You're not evolving in days. So to say that, it's kind of, you can't really say it can go.
And
That's a
we
big
must-
range.
I'm sorry.
Genetically acclimatizing yourself.
Thank you. That works. Yes.
Individuals don't evolve. Populations
Yeah.
evolve.
Well, for example, I grew up in high altitude. All right, and when I came down to sea level, wow, I can run faster. Right. So am I gonna acclimatize to run less when I come at a lower?
The more you run, the stronger your lungs will get. The stronger your lungs will get. Yes.
Yeah, but am I gonna acclimatize to sea level?
But that's not an evolution though. You're adapting to your situation. Same way when I trained, you're acclimating. I'm sorry. When I used to train, I used to go up into the mountains to train because it's harder to breathe. Blood cells get all stronger. Then when you come down here, your blood cells grab that much more oxygen. So it's kind of like that. I can't do it. Go ahead. Yeah. You were going to say it.
You are partially, I would say that you are partially correct if by you're talking about a population, right? If you're talking about a sequence of an entire population of animals or beings, and we're talking about inheritable traits. So if you had an advantage due to some environment, and you get to another environment, you will initially keep that advantage. But
That's right. That's an adaptation, right?
That's an adaptation. But only you get to keep it only if it is actually advantageous, right? If the new environment that you got into has enough oxygen that your increased lung capacity, it's still there when you first come, but it doesn't give you any advantage anymore because you can function with less. Eventually, you will lose that advantage through diversification, right?
Diversification? You mean adaptation to this new
It means when you don't
pressure?
adapt.
So
no, listen. I've been down here for the last 30 years, and I'm still as fast as when I came here. I have an advantage for the regular people.
You are not a population. You are a unit. Right?
Your kid.
You are an animal.
Were your kids?
Yeah, but I'm not a different kind.
Earth.
I'm not a different kind of animal.
Earth. Were your kids born in the hills or down here?
Down here.
Okay. Their lungs are different from your between your kids and your grandkids, I will say there's not enough to say
It's a new
evolution,
race.
but there is a difference.
It's a new race, but it's a new, but it's not a new kind.
No, it's not a new kind, but
Exactly,
Yeah,
and
but-
that's what you guys evolutions are claiming, that you guys from a butterfly to an
no,
elephant.
yeah, not enough time.
No,
You're-
no.
Earth,
So
Yeah, not enough time.
Earth, can you
in terms
you
of
define-
kinds, evolution is saying
can you
that
define
all.
kind?
Wait. Let me finish.
I don't think you
Come
can.
on. In terms of evolution is saying that all life, everything that is living, is one kind. That life itself is a kind.
The humankind, there's a humankind, there's also the bird kind, and there is also
what?
the elephant kind,
No.
the elephant kind,
Mammal.
and there's
So
the
all birds are
giraffe
kind? Are
So
all birds are kind? So the hummingbird and the ostrich is the same kind?
Yes, the birds.
Yes, the
yes,
same kind.
Oh,
Yeah. Like a
yes.
koala and a grizzly
all
bear.
mammals are of the same kind, which is the mammal kind.
Yeah.
And
That includes all the humans
Even the
and all the
egg-laying
monkeys
one?
and all the dogs and cats and
Elephants.
mice, right? Elephants.
Yeah.
That kind does include us. And there is the eukaryota kind, and there is a placenta kind, and there is a life kind. We are all, everything that's living is of one kind, which is the life kind. It's
Yeah, but
conditions.
you don't jump from a giraffe to a donkey.
You don't jump from a
yeah,
giraffe
that would
to
be a straw
donkey.
man.
Actually, I can do
You don't
That
jump
would be a
from a
straw
giraffe.
man.
Yes.
Why did only one species evolve sentient?
We don't know that only one species evolved sentience.
Thank you, Lauri. I do appreciate that. Hey, Glim, we do need to include the ancient Greeks on Brexit polls.
The way that human minds work, then you have answered your question of why there is only one species with sentience. Because you
Which
have
is what?
already included the species in the definition of sentience.
So you don't think it's funny that all the millions and millions of creatures that have been on this planet, we're the only ones so far that we know of that is intelligent?
I don't think that we're the only one that are intelligent. I think that we are the most intelligent. I agree with you on that, but I think that intelligence is a gradation. That monkeys are less intelligent than us, but they're still intelligent. And dolphins are less intelligent than us, or equally intelligent as we are, but in a different way. I don't think that intelligence or sentience is a binary of either no or completely yes. I think it's a gradient which can be developed in diverse directions. And even
So
we as
one day
humans
the
have
great
different, and even we as humans have different kinds of intelligence: mathematical intelligence, spatial intelligence, emotional intelligence, social intelligence, that aren't expressed equally amongst all of us.
so one day we'll be able to converse with gorillas.
We already do.
We are able to converse with gorillas right now through sign language to some extent.
I would say better yet, at some point in the future, we'll be able to communicate the telekinesis. Yeah, that right? Did I say
Well, a
that?
gorilla eventually one day will create something, will invent something. That's what you're saying. They're going to have intelligence like us. They will evolve it eventually to our standards. Is that what you're saying?
It is possible in a million years.
It is possible, but I'm not saying
listen.
that.
Yeah.
It is not.
What if it
It
was
is not
already
very
possible
likely.
and they disconnect us with all this, all these different confusions and the fabrication of this civilization?
How
What
about
if
this?
we were already connected with the cosmos? And
Do you
Wait.
know of the cases of animal children?
Yeah.
Children who were brought up, who were
Raised.
abandoned at very young age in the wilderness and survived on without human contact, either held in a basement or being brought up by animals. That's what we are biologically. without any knowledge, without any social interaction, without learning from other humans. That's what we are.
Yep.
Beings who cannot speak, who cannot think, who are barely anything more than animals.
We
in
learn
any
to do
sense.
that. We literally learn to do all that.
We are animals.
We are animals.
Have you guys ever heard of the 100 monkey experiment?
Is that the one with the ones on the island?
Right.
Yeah, that's some crazy shit over there. Yeah, they all got like syphilis and some shit like that. I don't even know what they have. They have some crazy shit.
They can communicate with other islanders telepathically.
I didn't say all that. I did not say that at all.
And there we go. That was a big leap.
Yeah, well, because the pure essence of an animal, you don't see, for example, homosexuals in the animal kingdom.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, you
Yes, you do.
don't?
Oh, really?
I have a dog. I have a male dog, and yes, trust me, male dogs do it all the time.
You see it all the way throughout the animal kingdom, I'm afraid. So that's a load of bollocks.
They do it for curiosity to help the brother. Hey, Bear, you got a spot over here. Excuse
You
me.
know what they're
Let me
doing.
get it for you. But
Yeah,
not
you're-
because he's
as well.
in love with him.
Are you an animal mind reader? Why didn't you just say that they don't have sentience? How do you know their
Mind up.
their emotional reasons for doing it if they don't have sentience?
No, you can see the difference between a dog just.
Oh, you can see.
Yeah, I walk my dog every day, and my dog sometimes licks another dog's butt. It's
You
not,
just
but
got
it's not
insane.
because
You just said
he wants to have an erection with that dog. It's because, hey, buddy, how you doing? Let me see what
Did
you
you
got.
ask him?
Yeah, he's not really gay. He just
Little.
wanted to help out his friend. He saw that his friend was kind of dry.
Yeah, that's like a bro job.
Have you also noticed that the accents? Yeah.
That was fucked up.
Yes. So dolphins practice long-term homosexuality. Deer practice long-term homosexuality. The examples of homosexuality amongst animals are wide and varied.
And also, as far as I know, dolphins are only species among, or let me gather myself. So dolphins are only another species that does sex for pleasure. Other than
They
us.
also practice gang rape. Amazing, but
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Yes, I agree.
Just
We are not the only moral agents on this planet. There are animals which are capable of doing evil things, knowing that they're doing evil things.
But I wonder why has no religion has ever gone to tell dolphins that there's absolute morality coming from God, that you should not have homosexuality and all that. Why don't they tell dolphins? Are they going to hell?
Good
Is there
question.
dolphins in hell?
No, when you really
It's
pay
dolphin.
attention to those behaviors, usually when you see in nature a male penetrating another male is usually for subjugation, to control, to hey, don't step, you're stepping over borders, I'm the king, don't mess with me, and race him just for the hell of it. But not because he wants to just mess with him psychologically.
You live in another neighborhood from me.
That's what's happening in the real world out there. But what was happening right here, they're even on TV, they're condemning to as young as 4 years old to find out what the hell are you, and they give you a list of 50 different genders. Now you can choose. That's the depravity of the evolution of this civilization, which is that's where we flat earthers are trying to set the record straight. Have a reset.
He has a point there. That's the end of Western civilization. If they teach our children that they're not boys or girls, that's the end of our Western civilization. We better watch out.
Yeah, because that's all
Yeah.
that's all it takes to bring it down. Yeah. Whatever.
So here,
Thank you.
here did I
My children have the
If
right to
an idiot-
self-identify, and I will respect their self-identification. I don't have to teach them or offer them a menu of sexualities or.
If they decide that they're not what you think they are, that'd be okay.
If they
Yeah,
decide
but
that
you know,
they're
there are
not what
better
I think
things
they
we
are.
could teach our children. We could
But
teach our
they're
children
not.
how to.
If you have a son and a daughter, and one of them decides, oh, I'm in the wrong body, I'm going to change. That's okay then.
Yes.
Good. Glad to hear it.
That's ridiculous. They're teaching this stuff to our children in school, and they're having like transsexual.
Teaching
It's
it.
ridiculous.
How is that harming anybody? Where is the harm in that?
You know what you are. For goodness sake, it's in your own head. They're not teaching it. You don't go to school and get a bloody biology class about transsexuals.
No, but they're telling kids before.
Nobody's telling anyone anything. They know in their own head.
So you think it's right for a transsexual to teach dressed in drag to go into a classroom and have children of 8 and 9 years old being taught by this person?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, I believe that's okay.
What,
Yes.
transsexuals dressing in
wait,
drag.
wait. Under the same expectations as anyone else, right? I don't care if the fact that they're transsexual does not affect their ability to teach. There might be other factors that does.
Yeah, but that's the same with everyone.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that I would say that every transsexual automatically needs to teach children.
No, of course not.
I'm saying that the fact that they're a transsexual is completely irrelevant to the fact that whether they can or cannot teach children.
Exactly. Same as any human being, male, female, trans, whatever.
Straight, gay, what have you. It's their ability to teach. That's all.
I just wonder, what does it mean, like transsexual dressing in drag? Because drag queens are a different thing.
They're a different
completely.
homosexual, but I would rather have a drag in the classroom. I'd rather have a drag queen in the classroom than most of the bloody teachers I ever had. Thank you.
Personally, I would like to see drag queens on the classroom.
My point is, we're filling the Western society with beta males and she males, and it's not good.
A good old baseless assertion, can you?
Yeah, and at the same time, on the other side of the spectrum, we are promoting the language such as alpha males and beta males, and saying that as though being an alpha male means that you have to be the dominant male in the pack that needs to assert his right, which literally is toxic masculinity. I'm sorry if one of the channels that I'm watching is about machining, and I love the statement that guy made. Somebody challenged him on changing diaper, and said, like, how can you change a diaper? That's a woman's job. That makes you a beta male, and that diminishes you as a man. And his answer was, dude, if changing a diaper makes me less of a man, then I wasn't much of a man to begin with.
Well said. Well done, that man.
Right?
Well done, that man. All this alpha male and beta male, we're not bloody gorillas. We are more advanced.
If you're so insecure in yourself that doing a quote unquote woman's job makes you less of a man, I'm sorry, you are not enough of a man. You are so insecure and so weak in yourself, in your realization of what you are, what the literal ontology of your existence is, that you need to prove to somebody that you have a penis.
What are you talking about? You're making no sense. My point is, we should wait until the children grow older. Like, you can't drink until you're 18 or 16. We should wait until that age. We shouldn't fill their minds with this stupid stuff. This is what I'm saying.
No, if they're 4 or 5 and it's a boy, okay, for example, 4 or 5-year-old boy, and he likes to play with Barbie dolls and things, encourage it. Don't discourage it, because it's just going to make him feel stupid.
I agree with you. That's not my point. You're missing my point here.
Nobody's teaching anyone out. Let him be what he wants to be.
There is no
correct. But why?
13 or 14 to decide.
In that sense, like if somebody is going around and telling boys that they are girls and that they should cross-dress and that they should think of themselves as girls, then I completely agree with you.
No,
That's wrong.
No, but the
Yep.
child himself should know.
But it's in that very same sense, it is wrong for a kid who feels as a boy, who feels as a woman, who thinks that they're a woman, who thinks that they're trapped inside the wrong type of a body, who is willing to go to surgery, change his sex, go to hormonal therapy, change their biological setup so that they become a woman, and going up to them and saying, no. You have a penis right now. You're a man. You need to butch up.
But
That's equally as wrong.
Yeah.
the sex never
People-
changes though.
People have the right for self-identification.
Whatever age.
I agree
Whatever
100%
it
with that. Yes.
I
Whatever-
agree with that.
If they are 4 or 5,
One thing. Oh, go ahead, Pip.
cognizant enough to know something's wrong, even at 4 or 5. They're cognizant enough to know something's not quite right here. I like dolls more than I like.
But for example, decision to go on hormone therapy should not be done by 8-year-olds or so.
No, you can't do that, because you're.
You know, brothers, the gravity of the situation with this whole thing that promoting changing your sex when you're 4 years old, they start telling you maybe you're a girl, maybe you're a bitch.
Who
In
is
the schools,
promoting
it's
that?
a new
Who is promoting that?
curriculum for all the children right now. Here in California, yeah, they as young as 4 years old, you have to start teaching you. They bring these drags into the schools to teach them about how to cross dress.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
You
This
have
is a disgrace.
If they're saying if you feel this way, this is what you have the right to do, that's fine. If they're saying you should become a transsexual, I don't believe you that that's what's happening.
Well, our children
Yeah,
don't know better. That's like you telling your children you live on a spinning ball, and we go out to the schools and tell the children, no, you don't live on a spinning ball. You live on a flat, stationary earth. What's the difference? And they're demonizing me for me doing that to school. For example, we're doing that today, this morning, where we go in and teach children that they don't live in a spinning ball. And the same thing.
But you're going into schools and you're telling them that everything they're learning in school is wrong. This is
Because
going in
that's
and telling
exactly
them,
what-
no,
exactly what it
wait,
is.
let me finish my point. They're going in and telling them if psychologically they do not feel that they are a boy or a girl, that there is another option. That's what they're doing. It is not telling them how to do this.
Send them
or
to the surgeon
you
to cut
should
it
do
off.
this. Hold on. They are psychologically trying to ease them into growing up. And I really think that what you're doing is you're going around and spouting these things and saying they're telling them that they should dress up like this is a lie, and and it really derails every conversation that you have when you say this is what they're doing and that's not what they're doing.
We're not doing anything. Let kids, be whatever the hell they want to be. You are going to.
What's up, Jose?
And flat smacking.
But I'm curious, like seriously, what do you perceive as the harm in being homosexual or transsexual?
Can I
Where
answer
is
that
the
question?
harm?
Can I answer that question?
Absolutely
I'll tell you
nothing.
exactly
I just
why
got
I
here.
think it's a
I
harm.
just got here. I can answer that question. I can have my opinion out.
Okay, go ahead. Answer that. What do you think?
Okay. Specifically, I don't find any harm on it. What I find a harm on is, and I agree with S.E.M.T.L 100%. He couldn't postulate the problem. Specifically, it was a little bit of a misspeak in there, and you guys misinterpret what Montreal was saying. I 100% agree with Montreal. It is unacceptable for this society and in these times that we live today, in this generation, the last 2 generations. When I was a kid in school, when I was growing up, those who are 35 and over, you never, ever in your life saw men dress as a woman going to school when somebody say, oh, let's say, bring a fireman, bring a cop, bring an astronaut, I don't care.
It's not,
and then you bring this, oh, I really want to get this out. I really want to get this out, Shawn. Let me rant for 1 minute.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Without being interrupted.
My bad.
All right. So I think it's unacceptable for this society and today's generation to have a bunch of 5, 6, 7-year-olds in school and have a man dressed as a woman in the front of the class telling, if you guys think that you are playing with dolls, if you guys feel like something is off with you, like you see if you're a boy and you see another boy and you think he's cute, or if you're a girl, you see another girl, you think she's cute, then please tell your parents, because you might have been born in a different body, you might have these issues. It is unacceptable to do that. They are too young to do that. What you are doing, if some of those kids have never heard of this term before, they are going to start thinking about it, because a lot of these kids, 80% of these kids have never heard about this issue, and they are being taught this problem in school. And I close. And
No. Okay.
Hallelujah,
Wait. First off, hang on. First off,
answer my question at all.
Hang on.
Answer my question at all.
Hang on, because I got some issues
Why
with what he
is it
said.
wrong?
Hang on. I have issues with what Jose just said. Hang on. First off, they're not bringing someone who dresses as a woman and they're male. They do not bring them to school as a profession. So do not compare it to a firefighter or anything like that. It's disingenuous. That's one. Two, they do not teach kids that they may be gay ever. So the statements that you made are super loaded.
He didn't say they teach them to be
Yes,
gay.
they did.
He told
Yes,
them
they
it's
did.
okay if you think of it.
That's teaching.
What are your parents?
He said they
Yes,
put
exactly
it.
what I
He
say.
said they put.
Misinterpreting what I
He
say.
said they put them in their heads, and tell them it's okay. That is teaching them that it's okay to be gay.
Misinterpreting what I say, misspeaking what I say.
Okay,
Shawn.
well then
don't
that's
interpret
what.
it that way.
No. Well then tell me that's what I'm doing, because that's how I took it. I'm sorry.
That's how you took it. That's how you interpret it. But
Okay, but then all you got to say
wrong?
Just correct it. You don't have to get all flammed up about it, because I just did.
I don't have to correct
I interpret it wrong.
I say what I say, and you interpret it the way you want.
But if I'm misrepresenting you, then correct me. I'm not saying I'm correct. I'm saying correct me, please.
I correct you that you say I was wrong with what I say, and I am right on 100% what I say. That's what I mean.
Okay, but is it? But what I say is how I said it is what you meant. But you just believe that you're correct.
That's the misinterpretation. You say exactly the words I say. You don't put it in a different way. That's the content that you get twisted the shit around.
I'm not twisting anything around.
How did he twist it?
I didn't twist anything around.
Well, I didn't agree with what you say, interpreting what I say. I'm not going to rephrase every single word because I don't remember. But
that's why I was trying to
That's why
say
we don't
something
understand
before.
each other.
If I may, guys,
Can I ask a question to Montreal?
Okay. How about
Do
this?
you understand what I say? Do you agree with what I say?
Okay. How about this, Jose? Did you or did you not say when kids bring a firefighter or something like that, and then you go in there and there's someone that's in a man and women's clothing teaching them in front of the class? Is that not what you said?
No, I didn't say teaching. Nope, never say teaching.
Okay, my bad. I apologize.
Shawn,
I wasn't trying to misrepresent you at all.
Male jobs, but you wouldn't want a drag queen in.
And the last thing, I really gotta go. I was listening to it. I gotta get my comment out. I am not a homophobic. I couldn't care. I called Brenda a she because Brenda is a she, and I don't want to disrespect anybody. I agree with anybody's sexuality. What I see wrong is kids being taught and I am saying it this way now. Don't miss it. Don't add it up to my first statement.
Yeah.
It's just this one statement now different than the first one.
No, I get it.
Kids being implanted in their brain, indoctrinated that it's okay if you question your sexuality since you're a very little kid. It doesn't matter if you are 10 years old, 5 or 2 years old. If you question your sexuality, you haven't speak with your parents. I say that is wrong, and I close my statement.
Okay,
and I'm out.
so
I keep listening.
my question was, why is it wrong? Why is it wrong to be gay? What is the harm in that?
Nothing.
Where is the wrongness in that?
He left already.
Well, I'll tell you what
I
is
know,
wrong
but
about that.
There's
I was
other
asking
people
that
here.
question to to Earth or Montreal or
Okay, I'll
whoever I
tell you
was talking
exactly
to.
what it is. Exactly what is
Go
wrong
ahead.
with that, brother? Because our mother creator brought a man and a woman
Beth, could you just stop
to
this brother shite?
Yeah.
I'm a
to
woman.
to okay, dear brothers and sisters,
Earth, I wish you
our
wouldn't go
mother
down that road,
creator
Earth.
Without the
created
bloody-
two races, a mama and a papa, and you
Oh,
it's a family, is the nucleus of the family, and to sabotage that family nucleus, it's like throwing a monkey wrench on a meat grinder. You know, it's not right. It is a sacrilege
no,
to
it's
the
not right.
divinity
It's
of
awful.
this world. We live in a beautiful garden
Ah,
that we're already in paradise. Excuse me,
no.
demon. Would you please be
No,
quiet?
I
Did your
won't.
demon
Bullshit.
glove zombie mother taught you how to be polite?
So
Will you be in the alpha male
that's
now and tell me to shut up?
assuming that creator existed. He also created
It's a mother
hermaphrodites
creator.
and
Earth, hang on.
androgynous humans and people who are none of the sexes, both of the sexes, and like genetically sex is not binary. You can have XX, you can have XY, you can have XYY, you
Yeah,
can have
we have
XXY.
hermaphrodites.
Right?
Yeah, let Mother Nature tell you when you're a hermaphrodite. You will have both organs, then you can fuck yourself. No problem.
Okay,
And
you guys see? Okay, Earth.
Oh, come
Earth.
on.
This is what I'm gonna say. Keep yourself
That
muted.
does not-
No. Earth. Do not come back. Unmute. Don't unmute yourself until you're talking normal and you're in this conversation. Because today has been a very good day for conversation. Do not come in here trolling. Period. And that's in the story right now.
That still
May I say something?
doesn't answer my question. What
Can I
is
answer
the
you, Barney?
harm?
Yes. Go ahead,
What
Montreal.
is the harm? Where is the harm in that? What is
Okay.
the evil being perpetrated?
First of all, I want to back up Jose and saying either me or Jose are homophobic.
Nobody
We're not against any gender. Love and peace to all homosexuals, all transgender. I have nothing against you all. I want that to be understood.
Yeah, we understand that. Nobody ever said you were
Okay.
homophobic.
Okay. Now, what I want to answer directly to what Barney said. What is the harm in that? The harm is this. Would you bring somebody in a classroom on the same age children to show them how to make alcohol, or show them how to make bullets, or show them how to make explosives,
Not the same.
or show them how to drink mixed
Not
Javel with an?
the
You wouldn't do
same.
that. They're
Not the
young.
same.
They're
Not the
Wait.
same.
So
Not nature. That's not
first of
human
all,
bio-
with alcohol, at chemistry class in elementary school, you learn how to make alcohol from sugar. You learn how it's made.
Don't go on semantics. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Not semantics.
But on the
please,
content,
Barney.
wait, on the content of what you were saying, alcohol, there is a harm because it's an addictive substance which can destroy your life. On the bullets and guns, it is a dangerous weapon which can seriously injure or kill, right? There is a manifest harm that requires some sort of adulthood and responsibility to be wielded. All of those things, fires, matches, alcohol, guns, all the tools, all the weapons, and all the utensils have their own level of usefulness and danger associated with them. Now, that danger comes from potential harm. Where is the potential harm of being homosexual or being transsexual? That's what I'm asking. What is the harm in that? Why is that dangerous?
It's not.
There is no potential harm. It is not dangerous. This is what Jose was trying to explain before, and you guys misunderstood. Maybe because
Then you have the only answer. Yeah, the answer would be there is no harm.
There is no harm.
Okay.
Yes, agreed. But
no, excuse me. There is harm if you suppress it and deny what your child is telling you from age 4.
We're not talking about that. We're not talking about an individual child coming to his parents. We're not talking about that.
Let them be what they want to be.
So from
I
what I
agree with
understood,
you.
Jose, from what I understood, Jose, and from what I understand you, that information they should not even be exposed to the information that those things exist and that those things are acceptable because they
Yes,
might be thinking about it.
at that age, they're too young for this information because
No.
what Jose was trying to tell you, you're putting it into their minds with otherwise they wouldn't be thinking of stuff like that.
I'm not talking about going proselytizing in schools about it. It's your
Well,
own.
that's what they're doing. That's our whole point, people. That's what they're doing.
Where are
But
you?
when you teach them history in elementary school and you teach them about wars, you are also giving them the idea that men kill each other for land and for property and for politics. Isn't
Like
that equally as
actual player.
dangerous? Or even more dangerous? I still, like, I fail to see how something can be a danger to a mind too young if there is no danger in it. And if there is a danger or a harm in it, you need to point out where's the harm. So what if they know of that information? So what if they decide, if they think about it and they decide that they want to be homosexual and that they are homosexual? If they discover that, aha, that's what's going on with me. Why is that a problem? Why is there, where is the harm?
I think Jose is
Montreal, I have a question. Are you
I'm in Britain. I'm sorry, but I'm in Britain, and there's no way that gets taught in school. I'm talking about in your own family. If you have a child that has a, okay, I might be different than somebody else. Don't make it a bad thing. I'm not talking about people going into school. This would never happen in Britain. I'm sorry if it happens in America, and I don't know about that. I can't see RuPaul or all the bloody drag queens going into schools. But it's a...
Again, here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with it. I personally, I had a cross-dressing teacher when I was a kid. It doesn't affect the education that teacher provided. Everyone on this look, hang on. Everyone here who thinks it has any negative connotation to it, you know it exists. Are you gay because you know it exists? Because you're saying that a kid will be the same, and that's not how it works.
Yo, how's the mic, guys? I'm talking through my cell phone right now. I don't know how the mic.
It's actually better. It's not as loud.
All right, can I say something real quick? Because I'm kind of working. I'm gonna need to elaborate on what Jose and Montreal are saying. All right, I agree with them. They're not saying that there's anything inherently wrong with being gay. What is wrong is shoving it in kids' face before they're ready to absorb the information. All right,
exactly.
That's what they're saying. They're not saying there's nothing wrong. There's nothing devilish about it. But when you're shoving it in kids' face, kids that are not mentally prepared to handle and can assimilate the situation, then it's a problem.
Matrixx,
that's what they're saying.
Thank you, Matrixx. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Who is shoving in their faces?
I understand protecting children from information which might be dangerous for them. I don't understand protecting children from information which they are, I don't know, unable to understand. Is that what you're saying?
The problem is we don't fully understand.
They personally dislike.
Nobody really understands why people decide to be gay. So when you shove this information that not even adults are fully aware of why they decided to be gay, I mean, is it because they like the opposite sex or they
It's
don't
not,
like the
it's
sex?
not,
You know,
it's not a decision. It's not a decision they decided to make.
Yes, everything in this world is a choice that you make.
Wait. Okay, wait. So wait, are you telling me? Are you telling me you don't love men because you decided not to?
Yep.
No, you're
I'm
wrong.
not attracted to men. I'm not attracted to men. I don't look at men. I don't like men.
Exactly.
But if I decided to, I could fuck any nigga I want to. If I decided to, that's the problem. It's a choice.
No, you don't. No, Matrixx, you're yelling. Yeah, Matrixx, you don't understand how that works.
I don't. Yeah, I definitely understand how it works.
No, you don't.
You know what it is?
You just got into.
You know what
You're telling me.
There's a lot of people.
Wait, Matrixx, are you telling me that being gay is a decision made on the spot?
I think everything I think everything in this life is our choice, including being gay.
Wait. Are you
we
attracted
have
to your
a choice
wife?
in everything.
Are you attracted
We
to your
have a
wife?
choice to act upon something. But there are things which you definitely are and you didn't choose. You didn't choose the number of the hands that you have, right? You didn't choose it. You now have a choice whether you're going to reduce that number, but you can hardly grow another pair.
But what does that have to do with what does that have to do with what we're talking
there are
about?
things
How does it
because
relate?
there are things about you that you didn't choose, even though you
so
have
do we
some choice. So you don't choose to be gay.
Do we have informed? So
you don't
as
choose
I
to
was
be
saying,
gay, but
we
go
don't
ahead.
fully understand because some people choose it, some people do not. So nobody as adults fully understand.
chooses.
Shawn, what I'm trying to tell you is, if we don't fully understand it as adults, how are kids supposed to assimilate this and comprehend this?
Yeah. So how do you think
That's what I'm saying.
But they have brains and they know how they feel.
Also, social. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's not a choice. Good grief. I am married with 2 kids. Female, married to a man, 2 kids, plus I've had ladies. It's
Congrats,
not
you're
a
in.
choice. I'm not gay. Plus, the actual conversation started that it was transsexuals, not gay. That's a completely different.
How about people in jail, guys? How do you consider them to be gay?
That's their own stupid fucking fault.
And how about those people? The people that make a choice because they're locked up and they don't have another choice. They make a choice to have sex with the same sex. Was that not a choice?
Off to jail, idiots.
They made a choice to.
But
They
was
made
it
a
a
choice
choice
to go to
because
jail.
of circumstance? Was it a choice or not?
Hey, guys, we're gonna go ahead and do the PMAR shuffle. Yeah. Oh, he's not in, but he's trying to get in. So what we're gonna do is I got the link in the chat right there. So go ahead and jump on over. No one can see the link, and I'll see you guys over there. And we're back. All right, that was easy. All right, as they file on in. Sorry about that, guys. You need a little PMAR's housekeeping. May have to do it one more time, but it'll be no worries. Fast and easy. I already have another one already built up. There's a possibility we may have to do it again, but if we do, it's okay because I already have one ready.
Can I just say, crashes? Look at my avatar again.
That is not real bacon.
That's not bacon. That's not bacon.
Real bacon.
That's
lovely.
not bacon.
British back.
If it's not Canadian, it's not real bacon.
Oh my God. Whoa, Montreal. Dude, we were cool for a minute ago, but you're fucked up.
Canadian bacon and back bacon is just
okay. I just want to let everyone know now. Guys, you guys can continue this conversation. Here's the thing. I got a flight in probably about 4 hours, so I'm kind of running around in my room getting ready. Texas. So you guys are gonna kind of do your thing, but I'm gonna be ending this probably in the next 15, 20. If you guys want, I'll keep it going, do the whole Jose after show thing and all that. So that way you guys can just continue on. So but go ahead, we're still live. Everything's still a go. I'm just letting you guys know in a little bit I'll be ending the live part so I can
say something.
It's all you guys.
Can I just clarify something?
Well, hang on, guys. Let Wolf talk because I know he kind of tries to get in there, and sometimes he kind of gets overtalked.
Okay, sorry.
So there's a little bit of please be patient. So I try to get my thing out. I have trouble with English sometimes, but yeah, there's little we are having two things discussed as one thing. So there's this transsexual thing, and then there's intersex. When in birth we have two genitals or some part of other and so on. That's a very small minority compared to people who become transsexual. So there's more psychological thing connected to transsexualism just than the biological part of gender as genitals.
Yes,
Maybe I hope I made sense.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Started on the transsexual.
I'm the one who made the equivocation, and I agree with
Yes.
you. And
that's what I've been trying to butt in
Yeah,
from that.
we started on the transsexual thing, which is
I wasn't trying to
different
equate
from
the two.
the
I was
gay
just
thing.
trying to point out that it's not binary.
I just wanted to make the
That it's not even
difference.
biologically
Oh,
binary.
yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes. We are clear.
This bringing drag queens into school. I mean, no.
There has been like reading hours by drag queens held for kids, like they read stories dressed in pretty
Why?
horrific looking drags. That it's not normal drag either. It's like they have devil horns and that stuff. It's pretty ridiculous. But
No. Anyway, but that's completely different. Kids can go on YouTube and watch bloody RuPaul's Drag Race and all that. Yes, they're drag queens. Yes, they're gay. That's a completely different thing from what we started talking about was transgender.
yes.
And that's kind of the whole thing.
That does not mean you're gay. That just means your mind is in the wrong body. And I don't see any problem with if your kid's 4 or 5 and he's decided, oh, I'm a boy, but in my head, I'm not. Is that wrong?
You're right. You're right, Pip.
It's not wrong. Because
no,
I'm
you're,
making fake and weird if you keep saying, no, you're a boy, you've got a penis.
yeah.
Be a boy, you've got a penis. Be a boy.
There are a couple of reasons why I would actually want sexuality in general, as in sex education, including homosexuality and the concept of fluid gender and all of that taught in schools at an early age, including the concepts of sex, such as what's a blowjob, what's a hand job, how can you get pregnant, and how can you protect yourself. Those things should be taught at school. Why? Especially, wait, let me just finish the point. One reason is to combat the social stigma that exists now against those things, where those same children will be taught from very young age at home that there is somehow something wrong with homosexuals, and that's a large part of where the hate for homosexualism stems from, and we need to combat that. But another point is what was just brought up. We live in an age where children have access to the internet, to the media, to television, they will be introduced to these concepts. I would much rather have them introduced in a context which is educative, which will give them a framework where they can conceptualize it, think about it, work with it, and function around it, rather than have them not know anything about it beyond what they see on the TV or what they can find on the internet.
Yeah, and think it's a giggle. Oh, that's weird. No, it's
It's
not.
fine to teach them that, but does it have to be done by a transsexual, by somebody dressed in drag?
Why would that be a problem? Again, for the nth time, why would that be a problem?
But nobody's saying they need
Two
to
things.
taught that.
One is, I think it's too young of an age. Maybe they should start this in high school, where their brains are formed somewhat, and they can make their own decisions.
No, you get 3-year-old and 4-year-old that are trans. You got a 3-year-old boy or a 4-year-old boy who wants to play with dolls because you think you should be playing with dolls and you should be wearing dresses and stuff. It's
But
in
in my
your brain. It's not unnatural. It's natural. His brain's in the wrong body.
I have 3 kids, aged 8, 4, and 1. Both of the elder ones, a boy and a girl, have already discovered their genitals and play with them and pleasure themselves. At which point should I start talking about sexuality to them and explaining what it is, how it works, how it can be dangerous for them, and how it can be useful to them, and what's good about it and what's bad about it in your book? When they're in high school, I've had
They're your
sex at
children.
12. I've had
They're
sex
your
at
children,
12.
Barney. You can do whatever you want. But we're talking about.
I've had sex at 12. I went to high school when I was 14. How would that education then help me? And I remember my education at that time, which was, if it weren't for my parents, I would have learned it from my schoolmates, from the same kids that didn't know anything as much as I did, who like told stories about getting pregnant from a kiss, which somebody scared their kids with, to if you we can't get pregnant because we're kids, so we can have unbridled sex. Right?
Barney, you are me, the male version of me. That's exactly what I heard. You get pregnant.
And that's what everybody hears. That's why we.
If a boy sat in the toilet seat.
Yeah, you cannot constrain information. You like
much more nowadays.
The way to combat misinformation is with the correct information.
Yes.
You don't lie to them.
My point is, it's not up to the state to teach our children. It's up to individual families to teach their children.
Yes.
They should decide what age, not the school system.
No, I completely agree with that. When your kids are ready, you should tell them. If they ask you a question, don't giggle and whatever. Oh, we'll wait till you're older. Tell them.
I don't want some transvestite dressed in drag teaching my 4-year-old daughter anything. Sorry,
why?
but that's me.
Why? Why? That's the crucial question I'm interested in is why.
Listen,
I'll tell you why. Because their brains at that young age are not evolved enough to decide on their own. So they might say, "Hey,
wait.
Are you
saying
experiment and have sex with another girl?"
Montreal.
Or a boy could say, "Let me experiment and have sex with another boy."
Stop. Just a few sentences ago, you said you were fine with them being taught the ideas, just not that it's somebody in drag teaching them that.
Yeah,
why not? What is the harm of that? Why is a man dressed in a dress different from a woman dressed in a dress, or a man or a man dressed in?
Barney, hands up.
Because being gay or lesbian is natural.
Wait,
being transgender, being a drag queen is not natural.
Wait, time out. No, stop. Scott, hang on. Stop. Montreal, what you're saying, that's so ethically wrong. Everything you just said was wrong. First of all, no one just does it because to piss someone off. It's how if someone's comfortable doing that, that's them. And that has nothing to do with their ability to teach.
Can I say? Going to say?
Go ahead.
Being a fireman is also not natural. It is not natural for men to run into fire and try to put it out.
And not the same
thing. Men or women.
And not the same thing.
Can I say? Shawn, please.
Go ahead.
Montreal, I don't even know what the acronym is, but Montreal apparently says a transsexual drag queen. That is completely wrong. A transsexual is a transsexual. A drag queen is usually a homosexual man. So you can't have a transgender drag queen homosexual. No.
Well, excuse me if I got the termination wrong. I believe you know what I mean.
No, I don't, because you use two completely different sexuality. Transgender.
Okay, let me be blunt. I wouldn't want my 4-year-old child to be taught by somebody dressed in drag. That's my opinion, and that's all there is to it.
Do you have a valid? Hang on. Do you have a valid reasoning for that actually matters? Like, is there something that that teacher would be not able to teach. Because I will say it again, I had a transgender teacher, and that teacher probably was one of my best teachers. So to discredit someone's ability to teach just because of what they do in the personal time is very disrespectful.
No, I mean teaching them about sexuality. They could teach them anything else, but not sexuality.
Okay, but the way you're saying it is as if they just do it because they are. They don't do that. No one does that.
Listen, I understand that no one is born. Gay and lesbian has to do with the the Y chromosome. I get all that, and I told you I'm not homophobic. It's just a child at 4 years old doesn't have the capacity to understand the things we do.
Okay, but there's a difference between you saying that they're explaining that and and one being a teacher in a school district. Is that a problem for you too?
No, that's not a problem for me.
Okay. Then it was my fault. Then I apologize.
So a teacher in drag can teach physics.
I don't see why not. I don't see why not. Yeah.
I would ask a clearance of terms.
And children can be taught sexuality, right?
Not at 4 or 5. No.
Not at 4 or 5.
Yeah, no. I don't think so either.
About sex.
At 7 or 8.
Sexuality, not sex.
I think that's still a little bit too young. Let's say
in
when
America,
you enter high school.
In America,
when you enter high school, that's when it should start. I believe.
Well, no. In
here in America, high school, I was already having sex.
It's junior high. Junior high, middle school in America is when they teach sex ed.
Perfect.
But I think we should define our terms here, because drag is something that has pretty much nothing to do with transsexualism. Like, people who are transsexual dress like the opposite sex, but drag queens are something that men like to do. Heterosexual men can do this. Dress as woman, and it's very overmade makeup. Like, they look like trying to look like superstar movie stars and these kind of things. It's not like transsexual woman, for example, that is biological male who became a female, is not in drag.
That's my whole point, exactly.
That's what you don't get. Drag queens are all typically homosexual men.
Not actually.
Not necessarily homosexual.
Yeah, but dressing up as women.
I have actually heard there's more heterosexual drag queens.
There's there's a couple. Actually, if you watch RuPaul's Drag Race, which I do, there was one guy who actually wore pants and changed to a female and still did drag.
All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm going to
different thing than being transsexual.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream part. You guys can continue on. I'm just going to end the live stream part. So I will be back in a second. Did anybody want to say anything, their last words to the people that are out there? Pip, you go first.
I would.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Montreal.
Love and peace to all transgender, transsexuals, gays, lesbians. I love you all. I have nothing against you.
Only hate concave earthers.
Wait. Earth is concave.
Oh, fuck. Well, if you're not one of them now, did Jason get you?
Yes.
Jason got you. Damn it.
Yes.
I'll see you over at the server.
Concave week, everyone.
So,
shout out to concave.
I'd like to say something before the live stream ends.
Yeah.
I am very strongly one-sided on this, but I am very, very thankful for the opportunity to have this conversation, because I think it's a relevant conversation to be had out loud. Because there's a lot of people on my side of the debate who are trying to shut it down completely, like not ever have it mentioned. And I think that's also wrong.
That is dangerous.
These ideas need to be explored and understood and communicated. And I still haven't gotten the answer of why it's wrong, beyond they're too young. What is the harm in them knowing when they're too young? But
their agenda
maybe some
is
other
Montreal, it's his time. You guys can, guys. I'm not going to end this. You guys can continue to talk. I just want, if you guys want to say something to the live, that's all we're doing right now. Wolf, you want to say something, or did you get your whole F you, man. No. Don't say anything about concave. Jason, I'm coming for you. Go ahead. I'm just kidding.
Well, aside from concave, I don't have pretty much anything to say at this point.
All right, no worries. No worries. You got the concave part out, so Jason will pay. He's gonna lose his wrench next time I see him come through the chat. Did you want to say something?
Well, I think I've said a lot, but you have to realize the difference between transsexual and homosexual. There's a completely different thing. And if you have kids, doesn't matter. Just let them be what they want to be.
All right. Crash?
Yep, I'll be back up and streaming. Hopefully they have my internet sorted out this week so I can do something other than mobile.
Ooh.
And we'll get back to doing the vampire shit on my streams late night.
Awesome.
And go real bacon.
No, that is not real fucking bacon.
Shawn, who spells it wrong?
I had no choice in it.
Touche.
Actually, I do want to get on that point of choices. A psychopath or a sociopath had no choice as to what they were going to be when they grew up, and neither did a transsexual or a homosexual. So, you know, I just wanted to point that out. It's not a choice. You were born with it.
Thank you, sir.
Shawn.
I don't want to hang on. I gotta go to the list because I'm not sure who else is here. I think that is it. Alrighty, that is it. All right, guys, go ahead. You guys can continue your conversations. I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream, and I will be right back.
Yeah.
Thanks,
So it's like nobody asked me if I wanted to have autism. Like, goddamn.
All right, guys. I'm gonna try to do this as professionally as I can because I still have them in my ears. But watch. Okay, ready? Here we go. Guys, I appreciate you guys being here. I definitely wanted to throw out there that my email is in the link. If you guys have a conversation, hang on, I can do this. All right, that's much better. Now I don't hear them. Okay, so if you guys have an idea for a stream that you guys want to hear, because I know I'm telling you right now, I am actually getting kind of flat Earth globe. It's fun to do, but in pieces. So if you guys have an idea for something you guys want to hear on the stream, or you want to get on the panel because that topic is the topic, my email is in the description. Let me know. I have no problem. Obviously, I have no problem at all going off the flat Earth thing. As you notice, I actually did it because Jose did it. I took the flat Earth and the globe out of the title. Will it be forever? I don't know. I may put it in tomorrow, but the reality of it is I don't need it. You guys are still here, and I appreciate it. Thank you. With that said, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. Like I said, I gotta get a bunch of stuff ready. Flying out. So again, thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. Jose, thank you for I guess for working. So I had this slot. So I had a little bit more viewers. So I do appreciate that, and I appreciate the people here that are new who may not ever have not heard me before. Please subscribe, like, share, blah 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 blah. And other than that, I will talk to you guys. I probably will not be streaming until Monday, and then even then, it won't be. If it is, it's going to be super remote, but on my OBS. So everything's going to be the same, but it's going to be a little different. So that will be on Monday. So I will see you guys in 2 days. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Love you guys. Peace.